This video is for business leaders who are frustrated, as I am, with the challenges of telling compelling brand stories. Stay to the end for bonus strategies for capturing real, personal stories for your story branding rather than artificial, insincere, inauthentic heroes' journeys. And to see my recommended video on creating more powerful moments to use in your brand stories. The things I liked most about this book, and by this book I mean Stories That Stick by Kindra Hall. This is a book review of that excellent book, which I highly recommend to anybody interested in this topic. What I liked the most is that her model is much simpler and much more universal in terms of where you can apply it than any other books of this kind that I've read, which is at least a couple, maybe 4 or 5, but at least 2 others I can think of. And especially her specific, concrete, immediately actionable strategies for creating your own stories. That is, stories around your company, but stories based in the origin of who you are instead of a story based entirely on fiction, which is actually harder because then you have to start from nothing, no real basis. That's my problem with other books of this type. They're always like, oh, we'll just tell a story about a character that doesn't exist in a universe that doesn't exist with details you have to make up. That's harder and always comes across less sincere because it's not based on reality of any kind. So she made the book itself a demonstration of how to tell a story well while teaching us how to create our own stories. That is, her speaking, her inflection, her pace, all the things a good storyteller does, she did throughout the book. And most books on this, it's sort of like a bland, professor, which I've been accused of, but a bland professor kind of a tone, even when it's an audiobook, about how to tell a great story without using any really particularly passionate or storytelling style stuff. Do you understand? Questions, all that kind of nonsense. So she makes it lively and shows you how an expert storyteller does it, as well as how you can do it. So she told a great story about how to tell great stories. All other books, as I said, have kind of been essentially heavy on examples, usually famous corporate examples, which is fine. You've seen the commercials. But unfortunately, light on techniques. It's like, here's great examples of how these things can be applied. But we're not going to tell you how. You got to buy our course or consult with us for that. So she cuts through that crap and actually delivers on what the title of the book says. And this is the first book of its kind that I know that does that. Tells you how to tell stories, gives you specific techniques. So her approach actually works far better for me, and her framework has just 4 parts, or her story framework has just 4 parts, and that is, first is an identifiable character or characters. Second is at least one authentic emotion. An important point here is, unlike other books that always emphasize sort of grandiose emotions, the universe is going to end, we got to save it from the dark realm, we got to save it from Darth Vader, all that nonsense. This is about how you can emphasize using any genuine emotion you and all your customers have ever felt, including everyday ones that aren't so melodramatic. They're not necessary and probably not even desirable because most people haven't been in that same situation. Third is a significant moment or turning point marked by times, places, events, or all 3 things. The next one is, fourth, specific details that make the story feel real. And again, this loops back to what I talked about using real content. It's much easier to tell convincing details about a real life story you've had and then translate them into another story because those real life details were in fact real. So that really matters. That's why badly written science fiction, badly written fantasy, when you see movies in that, there's a lot of terrible ones, yet there's amazing ones. The difference is somebody who knew how to do that storytelling, put in those details in a way that feels realistic to the audience. So each of her stories has a classic three acts. First, the normal. So essentially, the goal is to make this normal relatable to the audience, something that they have experienced as sort of the everyday humdrum. Your life it's there, it's going on, but it's not very exciting. It's something that should feel ordinary and everyday to your prospect. The second is the explosion, as she calls it. It's the moment everything changes from the normal to something else. So that's a sliver in time within the storytelling context, but that's the point at which, as I said, everything's essentially changed. Third is the new normal, and we can all relate to that term these days, especially starting 3 years ago, to date this video a little bit. It changes what's normal from the explosion onwards, what the world looks like, what their world, the character's world, looks like after that change. Now, it can be physical or social, like our world has become after the COVID pandemic. It could be a change in perspective where characters gain sort of a new mindset, like characters realizing relationships are more important than money. Another one could be a change about how the character feels about something. So it's just a change in their feelings towards someone or something. Perfect example of this would be the classic, what is it? Is it The Breakfast Club? Anyway, one of those John Hughes movies where it's like, I didn't even notice her. She was my best friend, and now I realize I really love her, kind of a situation, right? So falling in love with somebody that the character had barely noticed before the explosion, before the change. They didn't appreciate this person who was always there, who they realized was really special to them. One of her best insights is the 4 distinct story types cover, now this is different types of stories, all using the frameworks already mentioned, but different types of stories, and that she talks about 4 types of stories which can cover all your business storytelling needs. And those are, first, the value story. It basically shows the value of you, your product, or your services to your prospects. The elements of the value story are, like before, an identifiable character. This can be fictional or otherwise. It could be a person, an animal, or even a thing. Usually it's a person who represents your customer. An authentic emotion the main character feels as they're trying but can't yet solve their problem. A significant moment, which is the explosion, when they solve their problem by using your product. And of course, the ever essential for reality or realistic feeling identifiable stories, the specific details. They should show the audience that you truly understand them. Ideally, they should feel or think like you're in their head. It was like, they're reading my mind. That's incredible. How do they know that? That's the ideal situation. The structure of the other 3 stories, different types of stories, is the same, so I'm not going to repeat that whole thing again, but they simply focus on different end goals and serve different end purposes. So second is the founder story. It focuses on, you guessed it, the founder. And if that founder is you, then it's focusing on you and the beginning. It's essentially your company's origin story. So you use this to grow stakeholder faith in the founder, and is one of the best ways to stand out and bridge the gap between your company, yourself, and your customers. So you tell the founder's story under these conditions: to find funding for launching your company, to stand out from your competition, or attract new talent to grow your business. So I've talked about that a fair bit, about how to attract exceptional talent. So that would be the time where you would do that, is you tell a story that makes them go, I want to be part of this company. This sounds like something I would like to be associated with. Third is your purpose story. It tells everyone your transcendent purpose and meaning, aka your why. And essentially, it's like this: what is most important is how well this story supports a specific message. So you want to convey a message, and the story's pure purpose or its core purpose is to support that message that you're trying to deliver. So again, she brilliantly said this, or something very similar to this. What do you want? What do I want my audience to think, feel, know, or do as a result of hearing this story? That's your North Star, your vision, whatever you want to call it, in the direction that your story should go in. Third is to tell your purpose story. So the purpose story is to create alignment, intrinsic motivation within your employees, within your workforce, within your highest level team, and unity between stakeholders, or to create motivation and alignment around a goal or initiative, especially one that's controversial or sensitive or is taking place in a challenging time in your company's history, a sensitive subject, already covered that, or your core purpose. Why are we here? Why do we do what we do? And then the fourth type of story is the customer story. And she points out in the book, she talks about some research. You can look at it there, but it talks about it as this, as a superior way to build more trust than testimonials or reviews, especially if they're based on real customer experiences. And she actually goes into some real life examples of companies who do that. They essentially gather like a testimonial questionnaire, and then they take that real life experience and they turn it into one of these customer stories. So they get the real words of the customer, then they turn it into a story, and then if they're ethical, and they should be, you get the customer's permission to say, okay, yeah, I'm happy with you describing me in the context of that story like that. So they'll probably appreciate it, because it's hard, unless your customer is a storyteller and a professional at it, it's easier for them to just say their own words and have someone convey that in a more effective way, and they'll probably be happy to endorse it. So it essentially tells your customers it tells your audience who your customers are. Of course, you want your audience to be your customers, but out of that whole large group, whatever it happens to be, this will say, you are my audience. In the case of mine, my audience is business leaders and middle management, leaders at any level, but especially at the higher levels of companies. So if you do this well, they will again think you're describing them. Hey, that's me they're talking about in that. And thank you for watching this far, and welcome to the bonus material. To tell stories that are both compelling and relatable, draw on real stories from your own life that you can use as metaphors for whichever one of the 4 story types described above you need to apply it to. Now, she has a great example of this in the book. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to use my own to illustrate how effective this is. So essentially, years into a job I hated because it paid well, but it lacked any real meaning or purpose, I could recount my personal revelation that happened to me at some crazy music festival. I took the weekend off, went away to this music festival, and sort of had this revelation, for lack of a better word, and then talk about the details of that experience and the emotions I felt. And then I could say, or my representative could say, I don't want you to feel that way about your job here, while doing this in the context of a purpose story to create intentional workplace culture. Is like, we want this place not to be a place you hate to work. We want this place to be one where you feel what you do matters, and not in that fake, let's cram your personal purpose into our purpose and make it fit, but give you input as to what that looks like, which is critical in having people buy in. Essentially, we all have stories like this, and this technique from Kindra's book is the only I've learned about that had me thinking of the real life explosions, the real life transitions I've experienced in my life, that I could then turn it into brand stories as I listened to the book. So it was like, as this went through, it was like, I didn't write them down. I was busy thinking about the book, but it happened spontaneously because I could think of real times when there was an explosion that changed in my life and how I could then take that and apply it to these different types of story. So we're just about to the end. And so if you would really, and by the way, this is specifically to Kindra. I hope you watch this video. Thank you, Kindra. You're awesome for this book and for that especially that one technique. So to really level up your brand storytelling, click on the link in the description to join my $397 per month mastermind group for free for 3 months, but only for a limited time. After that, the price goes up every single day till it reaches full price. And watch my recommended video, which I'll put, should be there, right there, I think, and in the description about creating powerful moments you can apply to your brand storytelling. And as I said, that will be here and in the description. That's it for Crush It Club 300, my 300th video in just over a year. Stories That Stick by Kindra Hall book review. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.